Good morning, you're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor and here are the headlines. Prime Minister finally speaks out on the Dadri lynching incident, endorses the President's message on tolerance and plurality at a campaign rally in Bihar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address 2 rallies in Bihar today. BSP to launch its campaign in poll-bound state. Both PM and Mayawati slated to address rallies in Aurangabad. Nepal airlifts jet fuel from Kolkata as it faces acute shortage of aviation fuel. India has put onus on Nepal to end the trade blockade at border. US officials claim Russian missiles aimed at Syria from the Caspian Sea have landed in Iran. However, no clarity on whether missiles have caused any damage. And World Soccer's most powerful figures, including FIFA President, Vice President and Secretary General, are suspended for 90 days by an independent ethics committee. Well, our top focus from the Bihar campaign trail. Well, after a jam-packed schedule yesterday where he addressed 4 rallies, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address 2 rallies today. Now, today he will address rallies in Sasaram and Aurangabad. Polling in the 2 districts will take place in the second phase. The second phase of polling will be conducted on 16th of October. Now, 32 constituencies in 6 districts are going to poll in phase 2. 456 candidates are in the fray, including 32 women. Meanwhile, facing criticism over his silence on the Dadri lynching incident, Prime Minister Narendra Modi finally spoke out against intolerance. Now, addressing a rally in Bihar, the Prime Minister endorsed the words of the President and called for peace between all communities. Now, his reaction came in the last of the 4 rallies that he addressed on Thursday.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi broke his silence on communal violence in the country. While addressing a rally in Nevada, Modi endorsed the words of President Pranab Mukherjee and called for tolerance and plurality. He said the time has come to stand together as one and put an end to communal forces.
क्या हिंदुओं ने मुसलमान के खिलाफ लड़ना है कि गरीबी के खिलाफ लड़ना है? मुसलमान तय कर ले कि हिंदू के खिलाफ लड़ना है कि गरीबी के खिलाफ लड़ना है। अगर सुनना है तो कल हमारे देश के राष्ट्रपति श्रद्धेय प्रणब मुखर्जी दादा ने जो भाषण किया है और देश को जो संदेश दिया है, उससे बड़ा कोई मार्गदर्शन नहीं हो सकता है।
Earlier in the day, while addressing a rally in Munger, the Prime Minister waded into the beef controversy. Narendra Modi attacked RJD Supremo Lalu Prasad over his "Hindus also eat beef" remark. The Prime Minister said that Lalu has insulted people of Bihar and particularly his community who had brought him to power.
आज यदुवंश के लोग अगर आपको कोई सवाल करते हो तो आप उन पर क्या-क्या आरोप लगाते हो? जो गंभीर आरोप उन्होंने लगाया है कि यदुवंशी क्या खाते हैं, ये यदुवंश का अपमान है कि नहीं भाइयों?
The Prime Minister tried to make a connection with the youth and appealed to them to throw the present government out of power for the development of the state.
क्या बिहार को और अधिक बर्बाद होने देना है? बिहार की तबाही से बिहार को मुक्त कराना है? तो 60 साल तक जिन्होंने बिहार के भविष्य को रौंद डाला है, क्या ऐसे महास्वार्थ बंधन को अब बिहार में जगह देनी चाहिए?
The Prime Minister also took the opportunity to slam the Congress party, saying it had lost its force and potential in the state.
और एक कांग्रेस पार्टी भी जब सामने से उसकी आने की ताकत खत्म हो गई है, तो पिछले दरवाजे से आते हैं.
The Prime Minister is likely to make a night halt in Patna today and meet BJP's Bihar-associated poll managers and core group to review the electoral strategy and assess the situation. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And the Bahujan Samaj Party will kick off its Bihar campaign, which is the 9th death anniversary of the party's founder, Kanshi Ram. The party president and former Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Mayawati will address her first rally in Banka and a second one in Aurangabad, where today the Prime Minister will also be addressing a rally. Mayawati is expected to address 12 rallies over a span of 6 days. The BSP is contesting in all the 243 seats in the Bihar Assembly. The party that has been faced with repeated electoral defeats in the past is looking to drum up support and has asked the party workers to host a series of meetings in all zones in the state. Now, a host of senior leaders have been asked to camp in the state. The party drew a blank in the 2010 Bihar Assembly polls. In 2005, it won 2 seats after fielding candidates in the 238 constituencies. It bagged 5 of the 249 seats that it had contested in 2000, when undivided Bihar had 324 assembly seats. And Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will be on a 2-day visit to Karnataka from today. During his visit, Rahul will meet with a group of ministers and local leaders at Agricultural University in Mandya. He will also meet sugarcane farmers in Mandya and nearby areas. In the Mandya district, which is considered as a sugar bowl, more than 23 farmers had allegedly committed suicide due to the failure of the monsoon and heavy debt made for crop growing. Rahul then heads to Bangalore, where he will hold meetings with a group of startup entrepreneurs. On Saturday, Rahul will undertake a 9-kilometer Padyatra, visiting farmers' houses before leaving to Delhi in the afternoon. Well, on to international relations. Well, India has put the onus on Nepal to end the ongoing trade blockade at the border. The External Affairs Ministry said that the growing anti-India sentiment is a cause of concern for the centre. Nepal has tightened security at the border with India as protests continue over its new constitution. Now, faced with an acute shortage of aviation fuel, Nepal also airlifted 66 tons of jet fuel from Kolkata to replenish its depleted reserves amid worries that the continued blockade by protesting Madheshis in the southern plains could ground domestic carriers.
It's been nearly 2 months since the agitation began. The trade blockade at Indo-Nepal border has now snowballed into a diplomatic row after Nepal moved the United Nations seeking global help to resume trade of essential items. A section of Nepal's political spectrum has been accusing India of deliberately choking supplies. With thousands of trucks stranded at the border, India has denied the charges, putting the onus to end the crisis on Nepal.
The need of the hour is Nepal has to set its house in order and has to reach out to its own people in a spirit of reconciliation so that the border obstruction, which is currently obstructing movement of traffic from India to Nepal, is eased at the earliest.
From Nepal side, no issue, just to want friendship, because, you know, our trade relations, it is such unique one. 70% on an average, we are based on India. And we are not only landlocked, from 3 sides surrounded by India. This is the only way. Without the support of India, we can't ease the life of the current problems of the peoples of Nepal.
India is also concerned over the growing sentiments against it in Nepal. There have been protests against the blockade, blaming India for the crisis. But Nepal's envoy to India said that Delhi has a key role to play to end the logjam.
We do recognize that there is a growth of anti-India sentiment in Nepal. And this is something we are seriously concerned about. There is no doubt about that. There is no two ways about that. But who is responsible for this? I mean, that is the question that needs to be asked. Who has stoked this anti-India sentiment? And why has this anti-India sentiment peaked? Because of what is happening on the Nepalese side of the border. Because the constitution-making process was not seen as a fair process by some sections of the Nepalese population. And they are the ones who have decided then that, look, we are not going to accept this, we are going to protest against this. And as a result of that protest, some goods from India, which Nepal needs, are not able to go through. But the blame is being shifted as if it's India which is responsible for this kind of a thing. India is not responsible for this at all. The
Nepal government has set up a panel to hold talks with the agitating Madhesi community, but there has been no breakthrough in the talks so far. The community has threatened to continue protests if the government fails to come up with a concrete plan to settle the matter. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And in a first for India's armed forces, the Indian Air Force will soon induct women in combat roles. IAF Chief Arup Raha made the announcement at the 83rd Air Force Day celebrations.
After years of fighting for the right to be inducted in combat roles, female officers are finally being given their due. The Indian Air Force will soon have women in combat roles flying fighter jets.
We have women pilots flying transport aircraft and helicopters. We are now planning to induct them into the fighter stream to meet the aspirations of young women in India.
Even though women were first inducted into the armed forces in the early 1990s, they have been kept away from combat roles. In the Air Force, women pilots were restricted to flying transport aircraft and helicopters. In the Navy, they cannot serve on warships, and in the Army, they cannot join the infantry, armored corps or artillery. The argument against inducting women in combat roles till now was that it takes over 13 crore rupees to train a single fighter pilot, and that investment can be recovered only over 13 to 14 years of active flying. It was believed that women may not be able to give that kind of time to the force once they get married, thus disrupting the IAF's tight flying schedules. There are around 1,500 women in the Indian Air Force. Of these, 94 are pilots and 14 navigators. The move is in sync with global trends, and it is hoped that it will help the Air Force overcome shortage of officers in the fighter aircraft stream. The proposal has now been sent to the Defence Ministry for approval. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now a look at what all events are lined up for the day in the day ahead. The Supreme Court will hear a batch of petitions filed by persons including Congress leader Digvijay Singh on the alleged Vyapam scam. On 11th of September, Supreme Court asked the CBI to file a status report. It also refused to acknowledge the CBI's plea to distinguish between cases which were under probe and those pending in trial courts in India, and asked it to take overall Vyapam scam matters irrespective of their present status. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will discuss recent developments in the global economy and lack of progress in the implementation of the 2010 IMF quota reforms during his official tour to Peru to attend IMF World Bank meetings. The Finance Minister, in his capacity as India's governor on the Board of Governors of IMF and the World Bank, leads the Indian delegation. The government is likely to see constitution of the larger Supreme Court bench from Chief Justice of India on the Aadhaar case, restricting use of Aadhaar card only to public distribution system and the LPG subsidy. The Supreme Court on 7th of October declined to modify its order so as to allow it to be used also for banking and other purposes. A bench led by Justice J. Chelameshwar referred a batch of applications moved by financial institutions and regulators such as the RBI, SEBI to the Constitution bench. The Supreme Court will hear a plea to enhance the punishment to be given to Uttar Pradesh politician DP Yadav's son Vikas, his nephew Vishal and their henchman Sukhdev Pahalwan in the 2002 Nitish Katara murder case. The 2002 honour killing of Katara, son of senior railway officer, by two brothers and Pahalwan after his abduction from a party in UP's Ghaziabad district had ignited public outcry. The brothers did not appreciate their sister Bharti's relationship with the victim. And in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. We'll be right back.
Today we bring to you the Negotiable Instruments Amendment Second Ordinance 2015.
I think the ordinance in itself has created or made it much more easier for the individual borrowers to go and file a case wherever this is happening.
This has provided an immediate relief to all those small borrowers and the small businessmen.
Whenever we are working with fund houses and they have been, lending money, there are multiple check bouncing cases which we are facing on a daily basis.
Watch Law of the Land, Sunday 10 p.m. and Monday 8:30 a.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. New news from Uttar Pradesh, where the first phase of Panchayat polls will be held today. The election will be held in two parts. The first part would elect Zilla Panchayat and block development members, whereas village heads and the Panchayat members would be elected in the second leg. The first part would be held in four phases, that is 9th, 13th, 17th and 29th of October, and counting would take place on 1st of November. Around 2.93 crore electorates are expected to exercise their franchise at 46,584 booths to elect 20,022 Kshetra Panchayat members and 921 district Panchayat members of the 218 blocks in the first phase. Elaborate security arrangements have been made for the crucial first phase polling for the Kshetra and district Panchayat members election in 73 districts. More than 3 lakh security personnel have been deployed for holding free and fair polls. And the West Bengal State Election Commission has announced repolling in 11 booths in the state civic body elections. Repolling will be held today in 9 booths in Bindhanagar and also 2 in Asansol. The results of the 3rd of October municipal elections will be declared tomorrow. Meanwhile, the opposition in the CPI and the BJP say that they will be boycotting the repoll. They allege that the State Election Commissioner is acting on the behest of the ruling Trinamool Congress. A left delegation also met Governor K.N. Tripathi seeking his intervention into the matter. The opposition parties, along with Congress, had called for cancellation of the entire polls, citing violence and malpractices. But Bandyopadhyay, who assumed charge as the interim State Election Commissioner, announced repolling only in 11 booths. Now, a petition has also been filed challenging his appointment, and it seeks an interim order prohibiting him from taking any decision concerning the 3rd of October polls. And the 8th edition of the Environment and Wildlife Film Festival, CMS Vatavaran, which starts today at New Delhi, will focus on conservation of water bodies this time. Spanning over 5 days, the oldest and largest environment and wildlife film festival in India will screen a total of 74 thematic films from 16 states and 11 countries at the NDMC Convention Centre. CMS Vatavaran 2015 will be an amalgamation of celebration and discourse with film screenings, forums on critical water issues, panorama of international film festivals, workshops on filmmaking, exhibitions, Green Heart and much more. Some Bollywood films will also be screened, including Kaun Kitne Pani Mein by Neela Madhab Panda and Aisa Ye Jahan by Bishwajit Bora. Now, shifting focus to international news, US officials have come out with new accusations that 4 of the Russian cruise missiles fired at Syria from the Caspian Sea had in fact landed in Iran. But the US officials did not say whether the missiles caused any damage. On the same day, Russia launched the missiles. Iran's news agency reported that an unknown flying object had crashed in the village in West Azerbaijan district. The town is said to be under the missile's flight path. The Iranian media dismissed the reports as psychological operations by the US against Moscow. Russia Defense Ministry stated that the targets for such missiles are always fixed beforehand and they definitely hit their targets. Now, Washington is evidently rattled by Moscow adding cruise missiles to the air war over Syria. US Secretary of State John Kerry told his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in a phone call that the two countries must move forward with their technical talks on avoiding accidents in Syria.
What we're seeing is a reaction, not some master strategy here, but rather a reaction to the increasing fragility of the Assad regime and their desire to secure or to bolster what they believe are their interests in Syria by adding capabilities on the ground and in the air.
And using them.
And then using them.
And after months of difficult talks between Libya's two rival governments, the United Nations envoy for Libya has proposed the formation of a national unity government. Well, the announcement is a step forward in stitching together the oil-rich, chaotic country. The names of candidates for the national unity government have been decided. Now, UN envoy Bernardo Leon said that Faiz Sarraj would be nominated as the Prime Minister, who is a member of the Tripoli-based parliament. Well, other posts in the proposed government include 3 deputies for the Prime Minister to represent Libya's east, west and south. Now it is up to the two sides and Libyans themselves to approve the proposal by a vote in Libya's rival parliaments. Many believe that the hardest part of the deal has just begun. The country has been split between an Islamist-backed government based in Tripoli and an internationally recognized government in the country's east. Now, Libya has suffered years of unrest since the overthrow of dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Well, the most coveted Nobel Peace Prize will be announced later today. The awards this year say that there saw 273 nominations, the second most in the awards history. Now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who opened Germany's borders to refugees and helped to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia, is a front-runner for the Nobel Prize. Another strong contender also found attentions for his actions during the refugee crisis. Now, Musi Zerai, who is a Catholic priest, is a founder of the humanitarian organization Habe Shia. Now, there has been a lot of speculation that US Secretary of State John Kerry or his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif, involved in Iran nuclear deal, could also win the award. Former NSA contractor Edward Snowden, who blew the whistle on NSA's program to intercept Americans' electronic communication, is also in the running, among several others. More international news in World Wrap. European Union governments, including the Western Balkans, have agreed on a new political will in tackling the migrant crisis at a meeting in Luxembourg. Now, EU's foreign policy chief Federica Mogherini said that they will be stepping up depictions of illegal migrants. They also discussed creating a border guard force among measures to cope up with the surge in refugees. The agreement also spoke of exerting more leverage on African and other poor states to make them accept the return of citizens refused to entry into Europe. The U.S. Air Force Airman Spencer Stone, one of the 3 Americans who thwarted a train attack in France in August, was stabbed in Sarsamento. The medics say that Spencer sustained 3 wounds to his torso following an altercation outside a bar early Thursday. They say that his condition is serious. No arrests have been made in connection with the stabbing so far. The Sacramento police maintains that the 2 incidents are unrelated. Republican Kevin McCarthy has dropped out of the race to be the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. McCarthy said that he thought that he was not the right person for the job and the Republicans must be united in backing a new Speaker. The news has left the race to succeed John Boehner in disarray. The election has now been postponed. McCarthy was considered the favorite to take over from Boehner, who quit amid party tensions. Once again, Ebola scare has been reported in southern Nigerian town of Calabar a year after the country was declared free of the virus. 10 people have been quarantined after coming into contact with a man showing Ebola-like symptoms. The man reportedly died shortly after being admitted to the hospital. New cases have fallen sharply in 2015, but the World Health Organization has warned that the disease could again break out. More than 11,000 people died in West African Ebola outbreak. And on to sports now. Well, the third and the final T20 match between India and South Africa at the Eden Gardens was washed out without a ball being bowled. The no result gave South Africa a 2-0 series win, depriving India a chance of redemption.
A waterlogged outfield forced the third T20 between India and South Africa to be abandoned without a toss or a ball bowled at Eden Gardens. The abandonment of the game again showed the poor drainage system at the iconic stadium, as the authorities had more than 5 hours to get the ground ready after the passing shower. The no-show left the fans disappointed.
इतना बड़ा इतना पुराना ग्राउंड है बट फिर भी इतना ये पानी सुखाने के लायक केपेबल नहीं है. सीएबी को कुछ स्टेप्स लेना चाहिए था. ये ग्राउंड मैच हो सकता था.
बहुत दुखी होना पड़ रहा है क्योंकि एक टिकट लिया है, इतना वेट किया है, भूखे प्यासे सुबह से.
2:30 बजे या 3 बजे करीब पानी खत्म हो गया था. फिर भी बहुत केयरलेस रहा, बहुत डिसअपॉइंटेड.
The result meant that South Africa clinched the 3-match series 2-0. India were outplayed by the Proteas in the first 2 matches, with the hosts crumbling to their second lowest T20 total in the 6-wicket defeat in the second T20.
We're hell of a happy with the way we started, but we also know there's a lot of hard work ahead of us. It's going to be a hard-fought one-day series and obviously leading into the Test series. So, yeah, great start for us.
India will now look for an improved performance in the 5-match ODI series, which starts in Kanpur from October 11. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And on to soccer now. World Soccer Chief Sepp Blatter, Secretary General Jerome Valcke and European boss Platini were suspended on Thursday in an ever-deepening corruption scandal, decapitating the leadership of the sport as it faces criminal investigations on both sides of the Atlantic. Here is a full report.
The House of Football is crumbling. That was a common reaction to the news that FIFA President Sepp Blatter and his possible successor, UEFA Chief Michael Platini, have both been provisionally banned for 90 days by the FIFA Ethics Committee. In a statement issued by the Ethics Committee, it said that during this time, the above individuals are banned from all football activities on a national and international level. Blatter, who's been president of the world governing body FIFA since 1998, was already due to stand down after an election for his replacement in February. But Platini, head of the European body UEFA, was a front-runner to replace him, and his shrinking election hopes now depend on whether he can overturn the 90-day ban imposed by FIFA's Ethics Committee. Platini immediately began a rigorous defense of his position, backed by the UEFA Executive Committee, who said it had no intention of replacing him now.
Nous avons suivi, comme vous tous, ou grâce à vous, un peu tout ce qui s'est passé ces derniers jours. Et sincèrement, moi qui aime la FIFA, moi qui ai une grande admiration de l'histoire de la FIFA, moi qui suis cela depuis quelques années, je suis dépité. Je suis écœuré et j'en ai marre. Enough is enough.
The English Football Association still maintained their support for Michael Platini to become the next president of FIFA, with Chairman Craig Dyack saying they would only withdraw it if he was found guilty of corruption.
Platini has been suspended. We were supporting him to be the next president of FIFA because we think he's done a very good job as president of UEFA. But if in the end the evidence shows, and he is quite adamant that he is not guilty, but if in the end the evidence shows that he has been involved in corrupt practices, then clearly we won't support him.
FIFA also handed out a 90-day suspension to Secretary General Jerome Valcke, who has already been sent on leave after being accused of being part of a scheme to sell 2014 World Cup tickets at a marked-up price and ban former FIFA Vice President Chung Mong-yoon for 6 years and fined him 1 lakh Swiss francs. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's get you some more sporting action in Sports Wrap. The Indo-Swiss pair of Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis entered the women's doubles semi-finals of the China Open on Thursday. Top seeds took in an hour and 20 minutes to beat the German-Czech teams of Julia Jorz and Karolina Lisova 7-6, 6-4. In another fine day for Indian boxers, Shiva Thapa and Vikas Krishnan won their respective bouts to enter the quarterfinals at the World Championships. Shiva Thapa came from behind to notch up a stunning knockout victory against African champion Mohamed Hamoud of Morocco, while Vikas Krishnan outwitted his more fancied rival, fourth-seeded Paul Thomas, in an exhausting triumph. Argentina and Barcelona forward Lionel Messi and his father will stand on a trial on tax fraud charges after the judge in charge of the case rejected the request by prosecutors to drop the charges against the striker. Now, Messi and his father George are accused of defrauding Spain of more than $5 million. Northern Ireland qualified for Euro 2016 finals by beating Greece 3-1 in the qualifiers. Now, this would be Northern Ireland's first major tournament in 30 years. In another game, Republic of Ireland produced a stunning victory 1-0 over world champions Germany to boost their chances of qualification. Well, that's all in this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great day ahead.